This is Sylvie Curry from Ramona, California, and I'm listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
Start the game! Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike the match, and... Oh, should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
All right, good evening, and welcome to the Really Big Barbecue Central Show. This is the show that talks about all things important to barbecue and grilling, blah, blah, blah. We have to have an abridged open because it's all Barbecue Hall of Famers, guest Hall of Famers all the time. Coming up in about 8 seconds, Andy Husbands for the complete first hour. Coming up in the second hour, Emily Detwiler at 10 p.m. So we mustn't waste any more time. We race to the hotline and pick up our pal, Andy Husbands. There he is, Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer. Oh, my. Look, Andy, you've had a number of accomplishments over your storied career, both in restaurant touring and in barbecue, but I would imagine we've reached some kind of pinnacle and life-changing momentum as the guest Hall of Fame honors are bestowed.
Yeah, I am truly honored. It's really super cool.
Have you been approached by media and kids seeking autographs? I mean, I'm very big with the kids.
Yes, daily. Daily, they're coming to me and asking for my autographs, especially my children.
Yes, of course.
Really want that.
As long as it's your kids first. I mean, that's really all that matters in the end. All right, so we're going to do the origin story of Andy Husbands, which means we're starting all the way in the beginning. So when was Andy Husbands born?
1969, believe it or not.
I'll believe it. Where at?
Seattle, Washington.
Really?
Yeah.
I always fancy you a New Englander from way back, but
no,
wow.
Go Seahawks. Jim Zorn.
Wow, Jim.
Steve
Steve Largent doesn't want any of that. Yeah, all right. Love that. Good. So, other siblings in the house as well?
I have an older sister. Her name is Sorrel, and she lives in San Francisco.
So, what's family life like growing up out in Seattle with the sister? What's that all experience?
Wow, that's a great question, and I don't know how deep we want to get into my psychology.
Way deep. This is what we do.
It was bonkers. And look, I got a good family. So my father's no longer with us. But, my father was a hippie, and it was a wild time. I grew up with my father managing, in the beginning, more kind of like Grateful Dead-esque bands. So we traveled the country and we in a van called Farley, and the band was called the Fruitland Famine Band, and it was very unique. A lot of hippie communes and retreats and stuff like that. Pretty interesting. And then, which is crazy, is it segued into the Fruitland Famine Band changed it into a band called The Enemy. They were a punk rock band. So I grew up with a lot of, this is the late 70s, seeing a lot. My father had clubs and recording studios. I remember seeing, we're talking early days, Elvis Costello, the Ramones, Black Flag,
wow.
Yeah, just X, Go-Go's.
You're seeing them in person?
Go-Go's. Oh yeah, we've seen them in my dad's clubs.
Wow.
Yeah. Like little tiny 200. This is in the late 1970s. I want to tell you we lived in good places, and I went to good schools, public schools in Seattle, but it was kind of a wild upbringing. A lot of stuff going on.
feel so we're not that far off in age. I'm maybe 5 years younger than you are. So born in 74, so mid 70s, if you want to call it that. So, I mean, we're of the same era, same ilk, let's say. And I would imagine that my freedoms were way more constricted than it sounds like your freedoms were, just given what your dad was into. And
I mean, my father tried.
When you're young,
tried to to rein me in, but I was all over the place, and just kind of did whatever I wanted.
So was he more of not a control guy, but he did have some discipline in him. It wasn't just like, it's rock star stuff and everybody's doing everything.
No, and I mean, he tried to be a good father. I mean, he was a good father, but he was busy out nights a lot of times. It's the 70s and early 80s. I was a latchkey kid, so nobody was around. My sister was older, so she, by the time I was 12, she was off at college. So, kind of just, it's one of the reasons I learned to cook. There were, people weren't home, so I went and, I cooked. I learned to cook for myself.
Knowing what your dad did, I'm surprised we're not talking to like former frontman Andy Husbands of whatever band. Are you a music guy too, or no?
I love music, except for that music I had to listen to while I was waiting for you. I do really appreciate all types of music. I really do. And, but I just can't carry a note. I've tried.
You never played an instrument or anything?
I tried many, but, not good at it, but I appreciate it. I love music. But when I was, I think my creative outlet was cooking. I loved to cook. In 4th grade, I did a demo. You had to do a how-to demo, and I did how to make donuts, which, think about that. Wow. That's 4th grade. Yeah. I was learning how to make donuts, like frying stuff in hot oil.
Yeah, that seems dangerous.
Yeah, but I just picked up the Joy of Cooking cookbook, and I just read it and I would cook something out of it.
So as you're growing up, do your parents stay together through it all?
No, my parents were separated since I was like 5, I think.
Oh, really? So
and my mom,
pretty young.
My mom was around, but I lived with my dad mainly.
So when you guys are like touring around the country in Farley or Furley or whatever, is that just like normal everyday stuff? Or do you look around and go, well, I mean, not all the other kids are on tour?
No, I knew it was weird. In fact, my best friend, Peter Bovington at the time, I loved being at his house. It was so calm. His father was a lawyer. They were very preppy. Everything I wanted to be. And years later, we were talking, and this is, I think after college, and I had reconnected with him. He's like, God, I wanted your life. Everything was just, a lot of freedom. You could do whatever you wanted. And I'm like, I just wanted your life. Mom and dad were home, consistency. But so this is where the psychology comes in. Yep. Is I wanted that, like how dogs want a leader in the pack. They want, a wolf to lead the pack. I think I wanted that. I wanted like structure. And that's why restaurants really turned me on, because when you go into a kitchen, it's structure. There's somebody's in charge. You know what you have to do. You're going to give assignments. So for me, that I think was really attractive. I love that. Did you also have a relationship with your mom to some degree? Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. I still do. I just saw her today.
And then so you live with your dad, but like equally close to both?
Yeah, she was, maybe a couple miles away. I'd see her all the time. Yeah. But it was mainly I lived with my dad. But there were times I lived with my mom. It's just back and forth. Gosh, I mean, I didn't really expect to talk about all this, but, I do a lot with hunger relief. Especially, I work with No Kid Hungry. And that's my favorite charity. Such a great charity. I think no matter what especially these days, what our political beliefs are, I think we all can agree that no child should be hungry. And I don't want to go too deep into what I think about it, but I'm just going to say what's interesting is, by the time I was 16, I had lived in 16 houses. And when I was very young, when I lived with my mom, I think this is 1st and 2nd grade, we were federally assisted. Meaning we had food, what they called food stamps at the time.
Yep.
Funny money, right?
Yeah.
That, and I remember my mom using that. it was really cool. There was a safety net for her. She had 2 young children, and but she was ingenious and she was smart. She went and got a college education. She, she'd make us things like popovers, and which are cheap but really, really good,
Yep.
right? And we'd have tuna salad in them. Loved them. So she ended up doing very, very well in her career. She built herself a small business. So good for her, right?
So I have what was the food scene like as you were growing up? But it sounds like, from an early age, Andy was not fending for himself, but had really found an early love of cooking, perhaps out of necessity then.
Yeah. I mean, I made a lot of Kraft macaroni and cheese, and I made a lot of omelets. I used to like to, in a blender, put avocado, milk, and garlic powder, garlic salt, and eat it on saltines. That was my big to do.
Yeah.
But this is the 70s. My father was never ever really into cooking. He'd do. In fact, my memory of barbecue as a kid is a grilled country style rib, right? So the shoulder with probably some kind of to me, it tastes like today, what you would say is KC Masterpiece. I don't know if that was around back then in the 70s, but that's kind of what it was. And my mother, though, was a really good cook. She learned through the New York Times. She would read the New York Times. This obviously before the internet, and she'd take the recipes and she'd cook them, and she was really good at it. So, the food scene, this is the 70s and early 80s, not so great. It was good.
How do you recall the primary education years for Andy? Pre-high school.
Pre-college, you're saying?
Pre-high school.
Oh, geez. Well, I wasn't a very good student. I didn't really, I was okay. I was actually very, very, I always excelled in math. Math is I love numbers, so good at numbers. But everything else, I didn't really apply myself, and there was no one there making me apply myself. So didn't really. I did okay. I enjoyed school. I had lots of friends, but homework wasn't my thing.
Same thing follows suit in high school then?
High school, pretty much, I really excelled in math and history then. I liked history a lot, but I was in the class for English where, first of all, they gave us Beowulf, which is the world's longest poem. And I'm like, I don't like this. And then I think the next year I was in a class where they just showed us the movies. Like I saw the movie Grapes of Wrath. But I know you're going to get there, but so I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. When I got to college, I read, and I still do, all the time. Like I love to read.
So let me trot you back, and then we'll jump right back into college. Yeah. So when you leave high school, do you know you want to go to college? Do you feel, so for me, my parents believed that we should go to college because I believe also when they were our age, there probably wasn't the same kind of emphasis that was put on college. A lot of people back then were, going into the military, or they were going to work for, their careers at that point. And so to have a better life, it would be a wiser decision to go to college for somebody like me. I should have never went to college, but that's a different interview for a different day. But they thought, you should go to college, you get your degree, then you're going to be more educated, you go get the job. Did you feel like you had to go to college? Did you want to go to college? How did that play out for you?
So we should say that when I was 14, I moved to Needham, Massachusetts, which is about 30 to 40 minutes, depending, maybe even 50 minutes outside of Boston. I moved there. My father's father was ill, and my father wanted to move back and help take care of my grandmother. And so he's like, I'm going to go there. If you want to go, come on. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go. I was kind of a loner at that point. This is freshman year. And I don't know. I wasn't.
That's a tough move, man. Like across country at 14?
Yeah. Halfway through my freshman year. Yeah. Halfway through my freshman year.
Oh, so you're starting the second half of school in a new school.
Yeah. And by the way, back then, everything was different. And, it was a wild change for me.
Yeah.
I'll answer your question, but high school was tough in the beginning for me. First freshman, sophomore years was very tough because I didn't know anybody. Needham is a small town. So kids had grown up together and you're an outsider. And by the way, I went from like big city. I was a bus kid, I jumped on the bus since I was in 6th grade and ride around like all over the city. But you go to Needham, it's this little town. But I built some really good friends. Chris Hart, who I write my cookbooks with, and the leader of our team, was in my same homeroom. Hart and husband, so we were in the same homeroom together.
Really?
I built some, I really built some great friends from high school. So I think today, I don't think they should have told us college is a must. I really think that it's goofed some people up. Maybe college wasn't great for everybody. For me, and probably like you, I just was like, of course I'm going to college. Okay, that's what you do.
Yeah, next
in my
step.
town, that's what you do. So, or some kids went to the military. I probably would have been better off there. What happened was, since I was 14 when I moved to Needham, I worked in a bakery. Shout out to Hazel's Bakery as a baker's assistant. I remember. I'd have to be there at 6 a.m. on Saturdays, and this guy blasted this radio station, WJIB, always mellow music, right in Boston's waterfront. Ding ding, and you'd hear a song, that was like you kind of knew, but it was now Muzak, and it was rough. And he was grumpy. Oh, Ken was grumpy.
Was it yacht rock radio of the time?
No, it wasn't even. Yacht rock would have been nice. No, it was Muzak. Yeah. It was music.
Oh,
it was
music.
Like,
got it.
Yeah. So like they'd be playing Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
But it would be like, this is 1984, right?
Yeah.
So, but it would be music version. But I loved it, and he taught me how to in the beginning, it's like, you go wash all this stuff. And then after a couple weeks of that, he's like, okay, now you learn to scale something. So I'd have to measure out all the ingredients for him to make a bread recipe, so I weigh everything. Then he taught me how to make bread. And so it was really neat. And after that, I worked in a place called Beacons. I was a dishwasher. Then I remember, oh my God, it was a busy Saturday night. I was busting my ass, and the lead cook brought me over a prime rib at the end of the night, and I had never had prime rib.
Yeah,
and I was like, "What is this? This is amazing!" With the au jus on it. I'm just back there eating it behind. I loved it, and also what I loved about it. And I'm this geeky 15, 16-year-old at this point, and dishwasher. And you know who talks to you? Older girls. It was the coolest thing. Like all the waitresses would come talk to you, and these are like older. They're probably 18, 19, 20 maybe. But to me, I was like, I can't believe, and they were so nice. And it was like, everybody wants to be nice to the dishwasher, because nobody wants to wash dishes. Yeah. So for me, it was great. I thought that was really neat. Then they promoted me to prep cook. Then I worked for so now I'm up to junior, senior year, and I was working at a place called the Pillar House, which was a very famous restaurant in the Boston area. It's no longer around. And I'm like, I think I want to go to Johnson & Wales. I think I want to go to culinary school.
Wow.
And my buddy went to Johnson & Wales early, and he took a tour our junior year, and I went with him. Peter Murphy was his name. I don't know where he is. Anyway, so I went, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool. I want to do this. And I took my SATs. I got, I don't know, 1250 or something. I'm pretty good. And
That's
I felt
pretty
good. My grades were awful, and and so I signed up for, so I applied to Johnson & Wales and a couple other colleges, and that was Johnson & Wales accepted me. And I remember being like in the clouds going, I'm going to college. I can't believe it. I was so excited. And so now I'm getting ready to go to Johnson & Wales. I've been accepted, and I'm trying to fill out all the financial aid forms. And my father never did his taxes, and they're like, "Yeah, so we can't accept you because you rarely." And he's like, "Yeah, so I'm like, Dad, I need your taxes." Like, well, I don't have them. I'm like, well, I need them to go to school. And he's like, well, I don't have them. I'm like, okay, so I'm going to join the Navy. And I'm going to use their college fund, and that's how I'm going to go to college. And he's like, I'll have them done tomorrow. And he got them done. My father was
Wow.
a conscious objector against the Vietnam War,
Oh yeah.
and he wasn't really pro-military. So he did get him done, but I was too late, so I didn't go for the first trimester. So I started late at Johnson and Wales. Um, but yeah, so yeah, college was the thing for me. Like it was cool. Like I was really glad I went.
So that's the school that gives you both the cooking aspect and the business aspect, or could you do just one or the other?
Well, I should back up. So when I told my father I'm going to go to Johnson and Wales, he's like, "No son of mine's going to be a fry cook," and I'm like, "But this is what I want to do." And
I mean, never
I
mind.
don't
It's
know.
like a prestigious university of like
Well,
culinary excellence.
yeah, but back then there were, you couldn't point to a guy like me. You couldn't point to I'm going to be like, name your chef.
Bobby
It's just
Flay,
not.
blah blah blah.
None
Right,
of those people. Only
right.
people you probably could name was who I loved was Yan Can Cook. I think
Yeah.
was amazing.
Yes.
But Julia Childs, Jacques Pepin,
Yep.
but the Fred Smith, the Frugal Gourmet.
Yep.
He was out of Seattle. So he was mad. He's like, well, I wanted you to be a lawyer or minister. That's what he wanted me to be. And I'm by the way, not religious. We're not
Father
religious
Andy
family.
Husbands. Yeah.
Yeah. Unitarian minister is what he wanted me to be. And I'm like, you don't know me, Dad. That's not going to be me. And he's like, well, you have to go for business. I'm like, absolutely. I'm like, that's part of the plan. So
Yeah.
I went for 2 years for culinary and 2 years for bachelor's in business, which I loved it. I adored every minute of it. I got straight A's, magna cum laude. I absolutely loved it. I loved every minute of it, and not just because I was paying for it, which I did. More, I just loved the challenge. I liked being good at something. That made me feel good. I never really felt good at anything before then, and I was as good or better than anybody else.
So when you graduate, are you like hired coming out because you're a Johnson Wales graduate to, whatever great restaurant
Culinary
that
school?
is near you? Or when you're out of culinary school? Or do you go to to a different culinary school after that?
No. So
Yeah.
I had to work through college, right? I'm not. We didn't. I got loans and grants, but we didn't have a lot of money. So
So you're taking time off in between, like you take a quarter off to build up money?
No, I would work nights and weekends and summers. Nights, weekends, summers.
Yep.
And, I had been for 2 years, maybe 90 and 91, I was a sous chef on a restaurant on Block Island called the Block Island Broiler. And, I learned more in those 2 summers, probably like the amount I learned in those 2 summers was probably one of the greatest spans of learning time. They talk about, and when I talk to children or young adults, when I talk to young adults these days, I say there's this guy, Malcolm Gladwell, and he has this theory, and maybe I think that's who it is, has this theory that if you do, to become an expert in something, you need to do it it takes about 10,000 hours.
Yes.
So if you're going to do 40 hours a week, and, I know you guys want to have your fun, well, that's going to take you about 5 years. And that's great. I go, or you can do it like I did it and do it in 2.5. Because when I was on Block Island, the first year I was there, I had to beg for a full day off. And, it's 3 months of Saturday nights. And the guy I worked for, Donald Hauser, who's passed, this is one of my favorite chefs, was one of the meanest, hardest guys I've ever worked for. This guy would make me cry or make somebody cry nightly. But he was, he was unfortunately a raging alcoholic, but, he was just a great chef. And he'd be like, Andy, you get here tomorrow at 9 a.m. and I'm going to teach you some stuff. And so I'd come in at 9 a.m. and we'd work and make breads. We'd make dressings. He'd show me how to make stocks. Normally I'd be rolling in at noon, and he would just show me all the prep stuff. So like he just taught me so much. Little did I know that he probably hadn't slept for 3 days and on some kind of crazy bender, but
Right.
I didn't know that stuff. And I, I'm just sucking it all in. And, and I'd be like, oh, Donald, chef, can I please have a full day off? He's like, yeah, you can have this Sunday, you can have off, And then the second year I did get a full day off. And I worked for another chef, Donna in Sulaco, and she was out of New York. And she was super talented. So, man, I learned about fish and butchering fish and stuff. My point being is through my college years, I just worked. So I had, if you go to Johnson Wales back then, or you go to Johnson Wales now, going just to Johnson Wales will get you a foot in the door. But what you really need is real world experience. I mean, and that's for most likely, my guess is any occupation. You don't come out of law school and start, trying cases, right? You got to go get some experience under people. So I had a lot of experience.
So how long are you working before you meet your wife? Or do you guys cross paths a number of times before you knock her down?
Well, I've been married 10 years to Rice. So I've been working forever by that point.
Not married before then?
I was married before then. I didn't know which wife you were talking about.
Oh, okay. I only know one. Sorry.
I've been married twice.
Yeah.
But my other wife, she's good. We just didn't. It was just a relationship that didn't work. No smoking guns. It's just she's a good person. Just
we got too young, or just different interests in life and blah blah blah.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. Just different focuses and what we want and But I would say that actually back to college. So when I got out of college, I moved to Boston, and I've never really looked for a job. People always say like, "Oh, you should go work here and just help." So a gentleman who I love dearly, he's like, "Yeah, I got a job for you. Come, you'll be the sous chef at this place for Chris Schlesinger." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll check it out." And I worked for Chris Schlesinger at the East Coast Grill. James Beard Award-winning chef. He's
Legend.
My mentor. He wrote Thrill of the Grill, which is one of the best grilling cookbooks out there. Working for him, I got to meet Stephen Reichlin, who I'm still friends with to the day. It was just a great experience. And Chris taught me about how to be a man and a human being, how to be treat people well. I'm like, they asked me what I wanted. I'm like, all I want is 2 days off in a row. If you can give me that, I'll give you everything. And they're like, yeah, no problem. And I would work 80, 85, no problem hours. I would go in early, stay late. I would do whatever because I loved working for this group. They were such good people, and I learned so much about food and grilling. I was a live fire. It was just awesome. What a great experience.
And he was running real wood-burning fire grills, correct?
Yeah.
And which was kind of unique at the time.
Oh yeah. It was all equatorials of food from warm climate, and so next door was Jake and Earl's Dixie Barbecue, and so it was a barbecue restaurant, not restaurant, QSR as we call it, takeout. And the biggest fight I ever got with him, in fact, I almost lost my job over this. I'm his chef at this point now. I've been there for several years. I'm running the whole organization. He's like, I need you to work Jake and Earl's one night a week. And I'm like, no, that's not my focus. I don't want to do that. And he won. Owner always wins.
Yeah.
And I ended up, but he'll never let me live that down that I didn't want to work at his barbecue restaurant. And now I own barbecue restaurants. I didn't see at the time. I thought something that I was misinformed about barbecue.
So you thought it was beneath you?
I don't think I thought that because I really liked it. More that I wanted to do something different. I was going on a different path. I think that's more kind of what I wanted. I didn't think it was beneath me.
So where do you go from East Coast? How do you eventually vibe into the barbecue scene?
Yeah. Well, Well, first of all, I should tell you that before I worked at the East Coast Grill, I don't think I ever had, now I'm like 22 at this point. I don't think I ever had real barbecue.
Yeah, I
Hands
mean, not
down.
uncommon. Same thing for me.
It's like, this is the 70s and 80s. There's no good barbecue. There was good barbecue starting to happen up here, in my opinion. But really, I hadn't gone down south. I hadn't traveled down south, and there certainly wasn't any in Seattle.
Same.
Now there is good barbecue in Seattle. But so I mean, so I'm working at Jake and Earl's, and I'm like, this stuff when it comes out of the smoker is unbelievable. Like, it was like what they were doing was great. I left East Coast Grill and I traveled the country. I worked on a farm in Santa Fe for about a half a year. Then I rode my motorcycle from there to where did I go? Oh, San Francisco. I worked in a bunch of restaurants out there, and someone called me, or people called me and asked me to come back to open a restaurant. So I felt my time was done, and I went back, and I didn't really like the offer that was given to me. Didn't seem right. But Chris Hart and I, we had been best friends in high school. We were talking like, let's open a restaurant together. So we opened Tremont 647 in 1996 together.
So Chris was also in the food scene right along then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In fact, that restaurant I told you about that I got the prime rib from the grill chef?
Yeah.
He worked there too. His mom got me the job there.
Oh, wow.
So, he'd bartended and bussed and done all sorts of stuff. I think at the time he was working at Whole Foods when I came back, and we decided to go for it. And kind of like, be careful for what you wish for, because we got it. And it was challenging and hard. He had his first child, Ethan, and he decided that the restaurant industry wasn't for him, and so he moved on. This is pivotal.
How long were you guys together before he left?
Of it being open, about a year.
Yeah. Oh.
But it takes you a good year and a half to open it.
Yep.
And it was hard. I was confused. I didn't understand why he'd ever want to leave. But I've actually recently, I'm going to say in the last 7 years, I've apologized to him about that, because I didn't know what it meant to have children.
So did you guys, were you pissed at him then and stop talking to him?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to swear. Yeah.
It's the internet. There's porno on the internet. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
I've heard that. I was pissed.
Yeah.
And he was mad at me. We were both mad. It was a divorce. It was a messy. It wasn't messy, but it was a divorce. We didn't talk for a long time.
Like years?
And that, which is weird, because we, since high school, we've always talked.
Yeah.
Quick jump on the phone and talked. So let's just say a year, maybe, I don't know, maybe a half year after this divorce, I don't know who calls who, but we were on the phone and we're like, there's that event called the Pig and Pepper. Let's go do it. It was a barbecue event. And we said, let's go do that. Well, that'll be fun. So him and I went to it, and underprepared. We had a tent that fell down in the middle of the night. We had a crappy little Brinkman smoker or something like that, and didn't hold heat.
Any idea what year this was?
I'm going to say 98.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
Another team told us that we're like, oh yeah, they're asking us what we were doing for the poultry tournament. And we're like, poultry? We're like, we're going to do chicken. They're like, oh, no. They're like, it's anything but chicken. Like, really? And so now I'm calling my friends trying to get, I don't even know how maybe I had a cell phone. I don't think so. I don't know how I got in touch with somebody trying to get some quail or duck. And then another team tells us like, no, they're just busting your balls. So, we did awful in that competition, but we did get third place chicken. And, it was this, little tiny trophy about this big, and it was really special. It was this weekend where Chris and I, I don't know, it lit a fire. It's created a spark in us.
You fell back in love again.
Well, with each other and with food. We
Yeah.
both love food,
Yeah.
and we're very passionate about it. Um, and there was a fair amount of bourbon, and that's nice too.
Sure.
So that's how we started competing. I mean, that was it, and we built a team from there.
Was it was it IQ at that point where you're like, hey, we're going to build this team, we're going to call it IQ, or does IQ come down, years later? Because I would imagine like whatever competition you're at in '98, that looks markedly different than competition barbecue as we've come to know and love.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was starting. It was kind of starting, but no, I mean, I don't know what team we were called. I mean, we were Boss Hog for a while. We were the PBR Social Club. We were the UFO Social Club. Right around when iPods came out, that's where IQ came from. Um, and so that was the final name change that we grabbed. I think we might have a couple other names as well, but yeah, we just we started competing. We competed, and by the way, I'm owning this restaurant for this whole time, right? I have a kind of a fancier restaurant, and
It's
so
kind
it
of a
was
legendary
interesting.
restaurant in that neck of the
Yes,
woods.
yeah,
Really?
yeah. I had it for 20 years, believe it or not. So we, for the first 5 years, did okay. We had a blast. Um, lots of laughs, playing cards, a lot of bourbon, a lot of just having a good time. But after about 5 years, we decided that we were tired of losing. And I'll give it to Chris. Chris is really, the main guy on our team. He's like a mad scientist and did the research and did the reps, and we all started really practicing, especially Chris. And he met a food scientist online that turned us on to Fab P,
Yep.
Fab C. Have you heard of this stuff? Which is like
the original injections. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were on the forefront of that. When we started using that stuff and nobody else knew we were doing it, we would win every competition.
Yeah.
We would just roll in and we would do real well. I was at my friend's restaurant, and he's like one of those fancy molecular chefs. And I was sitting in his kitchen, just like yapping at him. I think after service, just he was prepping and I was talking to him, having a glass of wine or something. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he was like putting this powder on stuff, and he was like, "Oh, this is called meat glue." And I'm like, "I never heard of it." And I'm like, "Oh," and we had a problem of not getting our chicken skin to stick on.
Yeah.
So I am the one who brought that to the competition circuit.
You're responsible for meat glue?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'll challenge anybody on that. Absolutely. Yeah. I'm the one who brought it on. And I mean, everybody finds out what you're doing, and now you can buy moo glue, right?
Yeah.
Buy it anywhere. But that was, another trick. And so we kept on for us, we didn't have the history of barbecue, right? We didn't grow up on our grandfather's lap, smoking ribs.
And in the wrong region of the country, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we had to play catch up. And, people often ask us how we won the world championships, and it's doing the reps. There's no, as we were talking, like I ran a half marathon. The only way you're successful is you got to do the reps. You got to do the reps. If you don't do the reps, you're not going to. You got to do the work. But if you can find some technology that can help you along the way, that's not so bad either. I mean, even like, that's like back when, everybody uses maybe some kind of like guru of some sort, but guru was just coming up. We started using that stuff, using any kind of technology. We got a guy on our team, Jamie, Uncle Jamie, we call him, great guy. And, he has some mind for numbers. So he would track like temperatures and track what we did. And we kind of use that data to help us get better. So all sorts of things.
Were you using ceramic cookers on the team, or a host of different cookers? Or
No,
offsets?
in the beginning, we were using like a Lang or something, which is like the SUV of barbecue. I love Langs, but
Yeah,
not great for competition. WSMs in the beginning. I'm trying to remember the one out of Louisiana. I want to say Backwater, but that's not what it was.
Backwoods.
Backwoods. Yeah, Backwoods. So we had a
Backwoods
Backwoods
party.
for a while. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
Then, but we ended up, when we toured and we really started crushing it, we had a Jambo.
Oh, yeah, like everybody.
Yeah.
So you, IQ goes on perhaps a run that only Myron Mixon had seconded, which was a consistent 10-year run to the Jack Daniels, and had knocked it down like one or two times over that 10-year run, I believe. I think Myron Mixon was... Go ahead.
Go ahead. Myron Mixon what?
I was just going to say, I think Myron Mixon is the only other person that went to the Jack 10 years in a row.
Okay. So this is I have the bone of contention.
Please.
I think we went 11 years in a row.
Well, you would know.
I think. No, I wouldn't know. But also, I would think that maybe Bill do you know Bill Gillespie? I mean, Bill Gillespie's, he must have gone more than that now. Bill Gillespie's gone.
Now, I'm not talking about, no, I mean, he hasn't gone 10 years in a row. I mean, we're talking every year in a row for 10 years. To my knowledge, it was IQ and Myron Mixon. I don't think anybody else has even come close to it. There's been years that have gone in between with no-goes.
I was on a show once, and
what show?
One of the judges was Myron Mixon. And, he's like, I'm a competitor, and out come the judges, and they're asking us questions. And Myron goes, Andy, you won the Jack. And I'm like, yeah, our team won the Jack. Yeah. He's like, do you know who was second that year? And I said, Myron, if you're not first, you're last, buddy. So I have no idea. So what I want to kind of teach a lot of you guys out there is that effing with the judges is not good not going to help you win.
Oh,
not making them mad is not going to help you win. And I knew damn well that he came in second that year.
Yeah. First loser. Wow.
Yeah.
So can you sum up your competition experience? I know you say that you're still kind of like into it. You said you were going to go to the American Royal this year, in the next month and a half or whatever. But, outside of really hitting it, I don't know if you were necessarily like, burning through 30, 40 competitions a year or anything like that. But like, how do you fondly remember like when you were in it? Like, what are your thoughts of competition barbecue?
Well, I am so thankful for barbecue, and it's given me so much. And our entry was through competitions. So that's kind of my path. Other people, their path is through, working in Austin and working, and then, opening up some great place or what have you. So everybody's got their barbecue path. I just want to what I'm really thankful for is my brothers and sisters in the barbecue world, and I'm not going to rattle them off, but man, I miss Mike, he was Mike Mills was a mentor of ours, and, he kind of helped guide us a lot. We were brash and New Englandy and maybe a little intense sometimes. And, he talked to us about it and be like, guys, he's like, I know you know this, but, you guys got to think about, and it's like, he was just so giving of his, of him. He was just giving of knowledge, and, and Amy, and him and Amy wrote the foreword to our book, Pitmaster, which has sold like 75,000 copies. Very proud of that. So when you ask me about barbecue and doing all that stuff, it's really, to me, I mean, and look, it was hard, arduous, and fun as heck. We had we have a great team. These are our best friends. Toward the end of it, it was like not just friends anymore. Now it's friends and family. And it became a little bit something different than, just drinking some drinks and getting goofed up, and it became more of this family, and a greater extent to the family of you know my friend Stephanie, who helped us get a good location. Will be right next to her at the Royal, right? Like, so, like, it's so neat how how this community gets built around barbecue. And I just hope everybody has some sort of community like that. That's how I know you. Like, this is all cool stuff, right? Like, super neat.
What's it like writing books and having successful books on top of that?
Well, before we talk about success, I wrote a book about large parties and large party gatherings, um, in the barbecue kind of world and beyond that. My suggestion to anybody who wants to write a book: don't write one about like large parties or big gatherings and release it right before a pandemic. It just will not sell, you know. Writing a book is awesome. Our books have done real well. I wrote my first one with Joe Yonan. I think that was maybe 2000. I don't even know when I wrote that book, but Joe Yonan, he became the I think he just left, but he was the editor of the food section of the Washington Post. He's written a ton of vegan books, which are amazing. Books on beans, really cool stuff. Wrote a book called Cool Beans. You should check it out. Writing a book is difficult. It's like the biggest report you've ever written, and every word matters. A lot of creativity, a lot of thought. If you got a good writing partner, which I like to have, you're going to have a lot of good arguments and disagreements, which is important to like challenge each other. And like, it's kind of like, like writing an album. I remember one of the books, we had all the recipes on the wall, like the titles of the recipes, and trying to organize them into chapters. And then you're realizing, well, this recipe isn't very good. We should get rid of this recipe, kind of like a B-side, and it doesn't even make it to the B-side, right? Then but someone else is saying that recipe is no good, but you're fighting for it because you love that recipe, So it's a really cool, fun project. What's important is you have something to say. I'm working slowly on thinking about writing another book, but it's important that I have something to say. And I'm not writing a book just to write a book. There's no money in it.
Are you on a contract right now, or would it be a one-off?
Well, I mean, I have to honor my contract, which means I have to go back to my same publisher. They have the right of first refusal, but I haven't taken any money yet. But probably make a decision soon on what we're going to write. I think hopefully I'll do it with Chris. He's an amazing writer. He's an amazing food thinker. What I love about Chris is he doesn't think the way I think about food. And I think that's important to have that, juxtaposition. You don't want to be writing the same recipes. You want to think about things differently.
Outside of the potential book that would be coming, what else do you have coming up next 6 months, next year?
All I want to do is just work. I mean, look, I got a great family, so let's be clear. I love to be with my family, and I have 7-year-old twin daughters, and that's the love of my life, along with my wife, of course. We're excited for Halloween coming up. That's the big thing coming. But look, I just opened up 3 restaurants in 6 months this past year, so now it's time to kind of like really get them working exactly as I want them to be. It's a little bit of painting the Brooklyn Bridge, right? You kind of you get everything right, and then by the time you get to one side, you got to go back and do it again, right? So you're constantly just trying to get things right. But along with, I'm one for a good challenge, so I'm thinking about redesigning our whiskey list, redesigning our menus. Like, what is it going to look like in 6 months? What are we going to do in a year? What's coming up? I'm teaching a class this weekend. What is it? My big beef class. So steaks and beef ribs and brisket, I think. I can't remember what's in the class, but that'll be fun. So I always stay busy. We'll see,
What's the most overrated, your opinion, what's the most overrated whiskey / bourbon available right now?
Wow. Well, I sell like 400 bottles, so I don't want to say that. Um, you know, I this is what I would say. If you haven't tried Pappy, you should, right? And I know that's kind of everybody's like, oh, I got to try Pappy, but like, it's good. But like, I think you can find some other stuff that's a little less expensive and be really happy with it. So, I wouldn't say any of them are overrated. I just think that there's a really lot of great options that aren't always just because sometimes things are expensive because of allocations and sometimes things are expensive because of brand. And, that doesn't necessarily mean they're the best.
Why was Angel's Envy regular bourbon, let's say $35 and the rye is $70?
Oh, I don't know that, but I will tell you that Angel's Envy
ridiculous.
is our. I just looking at this. It's our 24th best selling whiskey on our list.
Wow.
This year, that's
Yeah.
the 24th best selling one.
What do you think is the most under the radar bourbon that people should be checking out? They're into that.
I mean, I'd advise you to check out what's local. I mean, honestly, check out what's around you. We've got some fun stuff around here. Mad River's kind of interesting. I think they do a good job. So it just depends on I don't know. That's a great question. I mean, I'm a big fan of all of it, so it's good. And big shout out to Kerry. Kerry Bringle was at my restaurant. I love his peg leg stuff. He's winning awards for it, and it's good. It's good. So
Is it, I mean, I know he's like small batch, or I don't know what the right term it is, like for craft beer, but is it also different, or is he a good marketer and like it's good on its own, but there's also a good amount of marketing that makes it appealing?
Well, he's a good marketer. Let's definitely say that. But I don't want to say that and take away from what he does. I heard him speak because he was at my restaurant, and they did some cool stuff. How they approached the wood, how they charred the wood. They did some really interesting stuff. So it wasn't just like he put something in a bottle and put his logo on it, which people do, right?
Yeah.
People buy the juice and just put their logo on it. No, he put some thought into it. So I think I think it's doubly amplified because he's a good marketer, but I think it stands on its own. And in fact, I think in a blind taste, it just won some crazy award. Like it's not just like when you see those awards, especially for wine and whiskey, these are blind tasted. These aren't people voting because they know him. So that's worth it,
Andy, what can I tell you? You've been coming on this show like probably way longer than even 10 years. Not like every month, but whenever you show up, you're a great interview. You always got takes. You're never afraid to share what you feel is the truth and the real, your real opinion. And getting this extra special look at you from, all the way back in Seattle, traversing the country has been an absolute joy for me. And I'm happy that you're in the Guest Hall of Fame. And this has been a great conversation. I appreciate you taking the extended time tonight to do it.
Thanks. I think we should bring back the radio show moniker. I think you need to bring it back.
No, I don't think so. The radio show that never went on the radio, but yeah. Wow.
That's why it's good.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, pal. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much.
You bet. Andy Husbands right there, taking us ever so close to the top of the hour. And if you didn't know Andy before, you know him really well now. Had no idea. So things that I learned, he started out in Seattle. I always thought he was in New England, as I said during the interview. I had no idea that he had seen all of these revolutionary / famous bands in person at his father's either club or recording studio. And then perhaps the most shocking thing in a barbecue sense that I never knew before. I had no idea that Chris Hart and Andy Husbands had known each other since grade school. I have no idea how people end up meeting and getting into the barbecue scene together, but That was certainly something that I was not expecting, and just really solidifies to me why these origin story interviews are great, and why I will continue to do them, why I look forward to doing Emily Detwiler here in just a few short moments. All right, before we get to Emily, we will talk to you about some show sponsors while we have just a few short minutes. Primo Cookers is sponsoring the show. Of course, we love ceramic cookers, but getting a two-zone fire in a round ceramic cooker isn't necessarily realistic. Why? Because it's round. Enter Primo and the game-changing oval design. The shape gives you the ability to execute that two-zone setup that you desire. Also gives you other ceramic grill benefits as well. When you break it down, there's more than 60 different ways to configure the Primo cooker. So you're only limited by your culinary imagination. Of course, accessories are important too whenever you're buying a cooker. So know that Primo has a whole bunch of accessories to really complete and complement your Primo Grills experience. They have the Primo Grill rotisserie, the Primo Grill pizza accessory, a whole bunch of really great accessories for that Primo cooker. Now, here's what we know for sure. Only sold through dealers, so you got to go see them in person. Find that dealer near you by visiting primogrill.com and then use the dealer locator. Visit them in person, and then you're off and running. See which one you think would fit on your backyard the best. See which one fits in the budget the best. Again, every week I'm telling you, don't cheap out when it comes time to pull the trigger. Don't cheap out. In fact, I would encourage you to buy up. Nobody's ever been pissed for having a grill that's too big. People end up pissed because, should have got it bigger. Don't be that person. Primogrill.com. Visit the Primos at the dealer and then get the right one. Also sponsoring the show tonight, our pal Sterling Ball over at Big Pop Smokers. That's right. Whether you're chasing grand championships or just aiming to impress your backyard cookouts, Big Pop Smokers has the rubs that delivered the results, trusted by competition pros, weekend grillers alike. Award-winning lineup like Sweet Money Competition Steak and Brisket, Cash Cow, Cattle Prod. All bring bold, proven flavors to every cut. And for a limited time, they brought back Cucaracha for a fiery kick that turns the heat up on any cook. For the listeners of the show, enter the code BBQ Central 25 at checkout. That'll get you free ground shipping now through October 31st, so you got about 24 days before that runs out. Again, that's BBQ Central 25 at checkout for free ground shipping now through October 31st. We will wrap the first hour right after that, and then we will get directly into the Emily Detwiler origin story. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show.
Happy to have you aboard here for the Really Big Barbecue Show.
We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
That was my mistake. Almost had it set up properly, but we're trying real hard. In our 20th year, we'll get it right some year. Fireboard sponsors the show as well, fireboard.com. Also, Pit Barrel Cooker, pitbarrelcooker.com. Tell them that the Barbecue Central Show sent you. Also, our friends over at McAuliffe Cigars. So for those of you that have asked for the green cigar sample, they have not landed here. As soon as they get here, I will go ahead and send them out. There's Joe and Steven and Keith. Probably Mike Lang would like some samples as well. So at least the 4 or 5 of you guys, maybe Rashid Phillips gets an unsolicited sample as well. So McAuliffecigars.com. That's MICALLEF, McAuliffecigars.com. All right, we are going to head to our number 2. So stick around, and we'll be right back.
Happy to have you aboard here for the Really Big Barbecue Show.
We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to.
Hit me.
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
Boing.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle.
Charbono! It's all about the charbono, dude!
Succulent fish. What?
He ate 2 feet for wiener.
Now listen, Lavernius, shut your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
And just like that, we are into the second hour. It is the Barbecue Central Show. We talk about the most important things in the barbecue and grilling world. By the way, Pet Life Barbecue Podcast telling me that, I guess while he can't confirm it, he does believe that Bill Gillespie is going to his 13th straight Jack Daniels. Work on confirming that, Johnny. And then if it is, I shall announce my error. I feel like my competition knowledge stopped being so wondrous a small handful of years ago. But anyway, that is that. Hey, we have a Barbecue Central Show guest Hall of Fame origin story that is ready to go. So we race to the hotline and welcome in 2025 Barbecue Central Show guest Hall of Famer, Emily Detwiler. Hey, Emily.
Hello, Greg. How are you?
I am fabulous, and we say congratulations to you for striding over the threshold of the Barbecue Central Show's Guest Hall of Fame. I'm not telling you what to say, but I would say to Rusty Monson a hearty thanks for his stick-to-itiveness on your, like, I remember when he initially even brought you up for consideration, and then year after year after year, just driving it in. And I wondered to myself, is Rusty going to mention this again in 2025? And without a doubt, he was unrelenting, and not to my amazement, but certainly to my delight. Everybody else said, yeah, you know what, we agree. Emily Detwiler did a lot of great things for the show from a guest point of view, and you are one of the 5 that make it in this year. So we're doing the origin story.
Thank you, Rusty.
Yes. Now, like, has the media inquisition started? Are the autographs fast and furious? All the high-paying gigs now that you're a guest Hall of Famer?
Absolutely. You know, living in Kansas City, you would think that everybody is looking for Taylor Swift's autograph, but now they're looking for mine.
Yes.
So.
Right. When is the new album dropping, Emily, right?
That's right, exactly.
Yeah. Well, we're going to do the origin story here. So this is a look all the way back from the beginning. So where is a Emily Detwiler born and raised, and when?
Well, I actually am born and raised in a little town called Hastings, Nebraska. And we actually have, now that I'm working in the grocery business, we have grocery stores there that we supply, which is fun to go back and see some of those. So yeah, I lived there till I was about 10, and then we moved to Des Moines, Iowa. And I would say I spent a lot of my formative years in Des Moines. So, you know, Midwestern girl all around. Nebraska and Iowa, you can't go wrong there.
Other siblings in the house aside from you?
Yeah. I have one older brother, and we did a lot of stuff together growing up. We were both in band together and choir. So we both, you know, were very involved in that. We worked in grocery stores together at Hy-Vee, of all things. That's kind of where we first started our first part-time jobs, I guess, and learned a lot in terms of discipline, and was great for both of us. But he's a doctor. He's an anesthesiologist. So he still lives in Des Moines. Yeah, he's been pretty successful in his own right. So he lives just about 7 minutes from my mom, and I live about 10 minutes from my dad here in Kansas City. So it's great. We're both pretty close to our parents, and that's been really great as they've gotten older. So
what's the gap between you two?
We're 2.5 years apart.
Oh, okay. So
Two and
pretty
a half
close.
years apart. Yeah. So not too bad, a good distance, I guess I would say.
So what's family life like for you growing up before high school?
Oh gosh. My family was super close knit. So I would say growing up, we did a lot of things together. Believe it or not, my mom was always the one who did the grilling in our household. I remember all the time we had a Weber kettle grill, and she would go out and get Kingsford charcoal, and we would grill all the time. She would grill in the summer. Her char grilled hamburgers were just to die for. So that's a memory that I have for sure. So maybe that's what started me down the barbecue path. I don't know. But no, my mom was a teacher. My dad worked in sales, so he was traveling a lot. And I don't know, we were all musicians. So both of my parents are singers. And that just, I don't know, I think that really got me comfortable with being around people and performing. And obviously, in all of my later career, I do a lot of presenting and talking to people. And I think that my musical career really helped me get started in that. So, and just, it was a different time too. We were always hanging out in this, walking around the neighborhood, riding our bikes everywhere. It's so different now. So,
what year or what era are we talking about here?
That would have been the 80s, early 80s. Yeah.
Are you a Gen Xer?
I guess so. Yeah.
What year were you born? Am I allowed to ask?
1980. I was born in 1980. Yeah.
Right. So I'm 74, so you're probably like right on the tail end of Gen X.
Just right on the tail
last
end.
feral generation, as I've come to find out on TikTok. Evidently, we're the best generation ever. Yeah. All the videos are telling me that.
One other fun fact I will tell you. So in this tiny town I'm from, it's not that tiny, I guess. It's 24,000. There's much smaller towns than that, I realize. But Kool-Aid was invented in my hometown. And my brother, so my brother had to do a research paper in 3rd grade on something from our town. And so my mom took him to the library, the museum, the Hastings Museum. And he learned all about Kool-Aid and did his research paper and presentation on that. Well, she became so fascinated with it that as a teacher, she created a whole curriculum about it for summer school. And she had like math and science and advertising, and she had an art aspect to it. And she taught that class for probably 20 some years. And even now in her retirement, she gets asked to come and do special presentations to all kinds of different groups. And she's known as the Kool-Aid lady. So if you've ever, for anybody that's listening that's from Nebraska, you know that they have a Kool-Aid Days festival every year. And she was like the presenting person for Kool-Aid Days for several years. So fun fact.
Nobody else wanted to pick up the expertise line on Kool-Aid and Hastings? They left it for your mom?
I guess not. Not. But she's got all kinds of memorabilia in her house of Kool-Aid. So one day that will all be mine.
What band stuff were you in? What are you playing?
So I played French horn was my primary instrument. So I played French horn in concert band and orchestra. And I also played mellophone in marching band, and I played baritone and electric bass mostly on piano, like a piano type of electric bass. I never quite learned the actual electric bass. Sterling would be very disappointed in that. But I did that for jazz band. So I was in just about everything you could imagine, and brass choir. I forgot that. So I was very involved in all kinds of band, and then choir. So I sang, and I still sing today. So I did that all through high school. And then I actually also I got a scholarship for French horn for college. So who knew you could do that? But,
right.
It wasn't a full ride, but it did play a big part of why I decided to go where I did for college. So.
All right, so we'll get into the college here in just a little bit, but let me roll you back. So, do mom and dad? Well, it doesn't sound like they stayed together. So, if one's in Nebraska ones and
No,
Kansas City.
they are not married any longer, but they're
Yeah.
great friends. And I've got to say that is tremendously awesome because most people who I know whose parents are divorced can't stand each other. My parents are actually really good friends, which is awesome and very helpful when it comes to holidays and helping take care of the kids and all of that. So, and actually, they've each come to a lot of the different barbecue things that I've had a chance to do throughout my career. So, a lot of people, whether it was Smithfield events or KCBS events later on, a lot of people have met my mom and a lot of people have met my dad, Papa Joe. So, they've been very involved, very close to me my whole life. We're very, very fortunate to be very family focused.
Was that a divorce that happens like as you're older, or like when does that happen in your life?
Yeah, I was a junior. I think I was a junior in high school when that happened. So, and my dad moved to California then, and honestly, that was probably one of the best experiences. I didn't realize it at the time, but it was probably one of the best experiences for me because it just opened my eyes to a whole different world. Because, growing up in Nebraska and Iowa and going to Catholic school, I was a little bit sheltered, I guess, in a lot of different ways. So then getting to go out and visit him back and forth in San Francisco a lot while I was in college, just so fun, just a totally different world for me. So it was really cool.
I mean, you seem pretty adjusted on it. Like, were you in the beginning? We were like, "Oh shit, he's moving away, he's leaving us, blah blah blah," or not so much?
I think the hardest part for me, just at that time in my life, was thinking, okay, I'm a junior in high school. Am I going to have to move and have to start over with new friends? And I know that's a very selfish thought at that point in your life. But that was probably the biggest challenge that I had at that point. And now, again, now that I've learned and I've become a parent myself, I understand the sacrifices that my parents made to really make that work, as long as they did for my brother and me, right? And so I think that's just, again, now that I am a parent, I know what they did, and I really appreciate it even more so, to just make things work. And really, they were very cordial to one another in the whole process. So it took some time, but I think, like I said, they're great friends. So not everybody is that way. And I'm so grateful for that.
Aside from your mom making really good grilled hamburgers, what's the food scene at your house growing up?
Other than when she would grill, I would say she's a great baker. So she would make a ton of cookies and pies and brownies. But other than that, I would say the rest of the cooking was very basic. We had shit on a shingle. I remember that as a favorite, when we were little. But just very basic meals. And my dad didn't really cook at all. My brother didn't love to cook. So I didn't really learn that much in terms of cooking, I would say, until I actually met my husband. And we started kind of cooking together as something fun to do. So I would say she was great at grilling, but that was about it. And really great at baking. So other than that, food was very basic in our house. So it's not anymore. We're definitely, we're foodies. We like to cook. We like to grill. We like to smoke things. But, neither one of us really had that growing up. So we've kind of learned that as we've gone on in our lives. So
what's like middle school, high school like for you?
Yeah. So, well, let's see. Middle school and high school, I went to Catholic school. So, again, I would say I was a little bit sheltered in Iowa at that time. So it was not very diverse background at that point in my life. But again, it really, I guess I would say a very safe upbringing, very humble, very family friendly. All of my friends, anybody's houses we would go to, their parents were there and just very involved in everybody's lives. So that part I think was awesome. When I got to high school, that's when I started really getting involved in all of the things that I was doing from a music standpoint, whether it was all of the bands that I played in. I sang in all the different choir things. I was involved in some theater. So I loved all of that. I did cheerleading. I also worked part-time, at not only at the grocery store, but I also babysat a lot. So I just remember being busy all the time, and yet studying, I had straight A's and 4.0 and all of that. So I just remember being extremely busy all of the time. And now that my kids are, God, I have a high schooler, which is crazy. I just look at him and I think, yes, you're busy, but I think I was busier. so, anyway, I loved it. I loved my high school experience. And I think it really prepared me for going out into the world and, really doing a lot of things. So
This is all things that you're into because you want to do it and you're getting all the good grades. Like it's self-pressure. You're not feeling, pressure from anywhere else where you got to be involved in all of this. And also you have to maintain these grades and anything like that.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I was very self-motivated. I think I always have been. I'm probably my own worst critic, and I think that's probably always been true. I've been harder on myself than other people are hard on me, I guess. I think it didn't hurt that I had an older brother who was also extremely smart, and he was in a lot of the same things that I was. So people would always ask me, "Oh, are you Nick's little sister?" Yes, obviously. With a last name like Aristotle is my maiden name, there was clearly only the two of us in the school. So, but neither one of us really ever got into significant trouble. I think the worst thing we ever did was we went out and played on the roof. And I remember my mom getting so mad about that. And the neighbor had called to tell her that we were out on the roof. So if that's the worst thing that we did, I would say she did all right. But we never got arrested or anything like that. So, I'd say our parents, they got away easy from us not turning their hair gray. So
you mentioned couple minutes ago that your choice for college kind of made easy because of the French horn, I believe you said it was.
Yeah.
So did you know, like even going through high school, regardless of if you were going to be playing in a band or going on some kind of a like drama club scholarship or I don't know, whatever you're into, you were going to go to college no matter what, or was there a non-college path?
That's a great question. I always knew I was going to go to college. I didn't really know where I wanted to go yet or how far away I wanted to go. I ended up so at that point we were living in Iowa. I only looked at schools in Iowa. And I think at that point it was because I was just a little bit nervous about being too far away from, especially my mom, since at that point I was just living at home with my mom. So I looked at 4 different schools and I actually enrolled at a school called Central College in Pella, Iowa. And at the time I was already taking French horn lessons from a collegiate professor at Drake University. And I went to my French horn lesson and I told him, I said, I'd enrolled at Central College. And he said, "Sit right there. I'll be right back." So he went and talked to the head of the music faculty, and he came back with a little bit more of a scholarship than what they had originally offered me. And, he basically said, "If we can get you some more money, would you consider changing your mind and coming to Drake?" And so I said, "Well, let me go home and talk to my mom." Wow. And I did. I went home and I talked to my mom. It wasn't that much more money. I think it was maybe like an extra $1,000 or something. Not enough in today's world that you would think, oh my gosh, that's worth it.
Like what did college cost back then? What was the year, like room and board all in? Where were you at?
Ooh, at Drake back then? That's a good question. It was probably 50 grand at that time, I would guess, a year. Wow. So I had a lot of scholarships. I mean, there's no way I was paying that out of pocket. I had a lot of academic scholarships too. Yeah. But I did make the decision to change my mind, and I went to Drake, and I'm so glad that I did, because I didn't major in music, but I think it was just that, I knew that they wanted me to go there, right? And it was that individual attention and that individual invitation, if you will. So
Division I school, by the way.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool. And, I studied marketing and management. I did a double major in marketing and management, and they have a fantastic business school. So I just had a blast there. I I'm so glad that I made that decision to make that change, because the other school I was thinking about was extremely small. I mean, not that Drake is huge, but the other school was really, really small. And I met some of my lifelong friends there, and had some just great experiences, great professors. So I would not have traded it for anything. So I'm very grateful that I did that.
So where am I getting the thought that you went to Mizzou?
I did. I
Oh, you
did go to
did?
Mizzou.
Okay. Like
Mhm.
post?
I did my MBA at Mizzou.
Okay. That's got to be it.
Yep. Yeah. That's
All
where I
right.
met my husband too, actually.
So that dovetails into my next question of like, when and how do you meet your husband?
Yeah. So I actually met him in our orientation group, if you will. So we had both come to Mizzou to get our MBAs. We each worked for a couple of years after graduating. I worked in Kansas City for 2 years and then decided I wanted to get my master's. He had been playing. He played baseball for the University of Texas Arlington. Was hoping to go pro. He blew out his arm, so he decided to work for a little bit and then get his master's. So we both ended up at the University of Missouri, and we met and started doing like corporate finance study group together, which, let me tell you, that was my least favorite class. But I guess I got something out of the deal. So anyway, we started dating, and we took an international marketing class together. So we actually got to go and spend 2 weeks in London and Paris for class, actually, with a class of 20 people. So, but that was really fun. That was kind of when we first started spending more time together, and realized that we liked each other. So that was
pretty romantic
nice.
Places too, by the way.
Yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. Yep. So then that was we were there for a year and a half. Went full time. I feel like now MBA programs, so many of them are online programs, but we actually went, and we were on campus, lived there, and I loved that. I'm so glad that I did that too, because it was just such a fun experience and a great way to get to know people. And just because it was so different. I had a small school experience for my undergrad, and then to have that much larger experience and get to go to the football games and all that kind of stuff. It was just very different. So I'm glad I did that too. And then I actually served on their MBA advisory board for about, I don't know, at least 10 years after that. And I'm still kind of connected. I do a few things with them here and there for the university. And I like that too, because I don't know, there's something fun about giving back and staying in touch with all of the students. So when they ask for anything, I'm always happy to go, whether it's to teach a class or just talk to students. I enjoy that a lot. So
how long does he wait to pop the question? I mean, you're kind of a catch, right?
Yeah. Gosh, we both got jobs in Kansas City after we graduated, and we lived together in Kansas City for about a year. I think it was about a year before we actually got engaged. And we were actually planning our wedding before we got engaged. So, as you know, now it seems like places book up fast. So we knew we wanted to get married at a winery in Washington, Missouri, actually, which is where Tim Shear is from, lives there. Didn't know him at the time, and there's a great barbecue contest in Washington, Missouri. So anyway, we knew we wanted to have a wedding there, and I was like, okay, well, let's go. And we got it all booked. We had the contract done, but we still weren't officially engaged. So I kind of gave him a deadline, and I said, all right, well, by December 31st, we need to be engaged. And I remember every day in December that year, I was like, you have 15 days left. There's 14 days left. And he had always said he wouldn't do it on, my birthday or Christmas or kind of an expected holiday.
Yeah.
So that year for Christmas, we had each gone back to see our respective families. So he was at his parents, and I went back to see my mom. And we got back home to our house in Kansas City the night of Christmas, and he asked me that night. And I was not expecting it because he had always told me I would not do it that day, right? So it really was a surprise. So anyway, that was really fun. We were just at home, and it was very sweet. So anyway, so we're celebrating 18 years of marriage this year.
Very nice. Congratulations.
Yeah.
How
Yeah,
quick do you have
thanks.
kids after that?
We waited, oh gosh, I think at least 3 years before we
Yep.
had our son. Yeah. So that was good because we wanted to travel and we wanted to be, we met in corporate finance class. Okay. So we wanted to be
Yeah.
a little bit more financially secure before we had kids. So he's a finance guy where he's a little conservative in that regard. So, you know,
So what are you
no,
getting job wise? Like what are you doing after you have a kid and all that?
yeah. So it's interesting. I've always worked somehow in the food or CPG business. And at that point, we moved from Kansas City to, I was working for Hostess Snack Cakes actually in Kansas City, and we ended up moving to Des Moines. We lived there for about 3 years, and I worked for a company called Damon Worldwide at the time. So really specializing in private brand, private label. And at that time, I worked on the Hy-Vee business. So I was really helping Hy-Vee, which is a, Midwestern grocery chain, help them develop their private label strategy and develop some of their brands and do their marketing. And then Damon asked me to start working on multiple retailers kind of across the Midwest and in some of Texas as well. So I started, doing that across multiple retailers. And then they asked us to move to Connecticut so I could help take on brand strategy for all of the US retailers that they worked with for their private brands. So we did that, which was very different, because my husband's from St. Louis and me being from Iowa and Nebraska. Connecticut was vastly different. And at the time, our son was 18 months old. So that was a big move. Let me tell you, my
So
mom
what year,
was not happy.
what year are we at here in
Oh,
in
gosh.
Arizona?
Let's see. Emery was born in 2010. So that would have been 2011 that we would have moved to Connecticut.
All right.
Yeah. So
And mom's pissed because you're taking her grandson away.
uh-huh.
Way to go.
Yep. And so when we lived there, we were literally 10 minutes from her house. So she would come over every day. Like she was a kindergarten teacher, so she would be done with school at 3:30. So especially when I was on maternity leave, she would come over every day after school. And it was great help for me because she would help me with laundry and cooking and whatever I needed, and it got to the point where my husband said, "You've got to tell your mom she has to call before she comes over." Because you never know what might be happening. And so she then would call, but she would call from the driveway. And that doesn't count, Mom. You need to give us a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, she was very sad when we took that sweet boy to Connecticut. But we were there for about 2.5 years. And let me tell you, that is part of when our love for food came about, because anything you can imagine, you can find there, just all kinds of different ethnic cuisines, the grocery stores, and what you can buy and cook at home. Unbelievable. And so I was traveling all over the country. My husband got a job in New York City, so he was taking the train in and out of the city. He was on the train 3 hours a day. It was just a totally different lifestyle than what either one of us were used to being from the Midwest.
When you get offered the job, we're moving for you, right? So
yeah.
What's the conversation you have with your husband about, hey, I got this job offer, you want to ditch your finance job in Des Moines and we're all moving to Connecticut, or am I going to tell them to piss off and we're going to figure out a way to stay here?
Well, we talked about it a lot, and ultimately, he was very supportive. And at first, I was almost like I almost didn't want to do it because I wasn't sure that I would want to be that disruptive to our family, because it was a drastic change.
Yeah.
But he was actually pretty excited about it and said, if we're going to do something like this that is such a big change, this is probably the best time in our life to do it, because at the time, our son was young enough. He didn't really know the difference of where he was.
Right.
And like now with our son in high school and our daughter in middle school, there's no way we would do something like that at this point. Right. Because they're just too established. But no, he and his company actually was very encouraging. He did have to leave, unfortunately. They didn't have a New York office, and at that time, that was definitely pre-COVID, so that was before remote work was, a big deal.
Yeah.
So, but they helped him in terms of trying to help with recommendations and stuff like that. So he actually helped kind of take care of our son for the first, I don't know, 2 or 3 months while we were getting settled out there. And I remember, so he actually helped drive one of the cars out to Connecticut. My son and I flew out there. My dad met us halfway in Chicago and then flew out the rest of the way with us. And then I had to turn around and go to Dallas for work, like literally 2 days after we had moved cross country. And I just felt so awful. Like, oh my gosh, they were unpacking the house, but I got my just desserts when it was time for us to move back to Kansas City, because at that point, Wes had gotten a job in Kansas City, and he had come out here first, and I was left behind in Connecticut to pack up the house. And I was 7 months pregnant with our daughter at that point. So, and I had our son out there. So it came back around.
So how long are you in Connecticut before you're headed back out west?
I think we were there 2 to 2.5 years, something like that.
Oh, yikes.
Yeah.
Not long.
And not too long. No, it wasn't too long. Once we got pregnant with our daughter, that's when we realized that it just was not going to work from a lifestyle and cost of living standpoint. I mean, it was like $50,000 a year for daycare per kid. It was just insane.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's a good college, tuition.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So anyway, we got so lucky though. Our next door neighbors, we had this wonderful Italian family. They had 3 girls. And so the dad loved having this little boy next door, and he called him his little Spadino, or little shit. And he would take him to the Italian barber. He would take him to watch all of his Italian soccer matches. And he just loved having Emery around. And of course, all of the girls thought that he was just wonderful. So they would pick him up from daycare when I was traveling. They would feed him, bathe him at their house, and then keep him there until my husband would get home from the train, and then, take him and get him tucked into bed and all of that. So we knew that when we moved back to Kansas City, we wanted to stay close to them. So they are actually my daughter's godparents.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. Yeah. So we still go out there now and then and visit whenever we have a chance to. But now that our kids are so busy, we don't get out there as often as we would like to. But
so how do we start to weave into the barbecue scene?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because when we came back to Kansas City, we came back for my husband's job at that point, and I still worked remote for Damon for a year. And then I had a friend that we had met actually from Mizzou in our MBA program at that point, who had started working for Smithfield. And he called me and he said, "Hey, we are looking for a senior brand manager on the fresh pork side of our business." And I said, "Okay, I don't know anything about the meat business." And he said, "That's fine. We don't actually need somebody who knows about meat. We need somebody who knows about marketing, and clearly you do." So I said, "Okay, I'll at least check it out." So I applied and I got the job. And the very first week on the job, they fly me out to Smithfield, Virginia, to take me through one of the plants. And I was like, "Is this hazing?" No, it wasn't. But they wanted me to understand the whole process. And I thought, okay, my tip is, if you're ever going to go to a hog processing plant, go in the winter because it doesn't smell as bad. as it would in the summer. But as I'm boarding the plane, my boss tells me, she said, "Hey, we're working on this thing called Smoking with Smithfield, and that's one of the programs I'm going to have you take over." And I said, "Okay, great. What is it?" And she said, "Well, it has to do with barbecue and barbecue marketing." And she's like, "It's great because, in the sport of barbecue, two of the meats that are used are pork." And I was like, "Great. I didn't even know that there was a sport of barbecue." So I was like, "Okay, I got a lot to learn." So they gave me barbecue and they gave me NASCAR to manage, two of
Wow.
things I knew nothing about. So I was like, "Okay, I got to get to some races and I got to get to some barbecue contests." So I will tell you, the very first year we did this Smoking with Smithfield thing where, people were submitting their videos, if you recall. And,
Oh, yeah.
I would tell you, I learned a lot that very first year. Maybe would have done it a little differently now that I know what I know. But it was a great experience. So I think that very first year, it was just more of immersing myself into understanding what the sport was all about. I got to go to several different contests that very first year. I think, gosh, one of my first contests that I went to was the Houston Livestock Rodeo. And so seeing that as one of the first things, I was like, "Are they all this big?" And no, clearly the answer is no, they're not, but it was just awesome. And then, I got to meet, because we were also working on, Walmart was the biggest customer, obviously, at the time. And so at that point, we already had some established pitmaster relationships with Tuffy Stone and Mo Cason at the time. And so, again, my boss told me, "Hey, I'm going to have you take on managing those partnerships." So, I got to meet those two right away. And again, I didn't know who they were at that point, but ultimately, Tuffy became one of my greatest friends, and I'm so grateful for that. And then what I also quickly then learned is the spirit of barbecue. And I think that the spirit of barbecue came to life for me in one of the greatest ways through Tuffy, because he said, "Hey, if you like what I'm doing, you should really check out my friend Sterling and what he's doing." So he sets me up with a call with Sterling to talk about King of the Smoker and the guinea pig. And as Sterling would probably tell you too, the first call we had, again, I'm new to this, right? I'm trying to figure it all out. And the first call that we had went a lot of different directions and didn't quite land the plane. So Tuffy calls me and he's like, "You got to have a second call." So I was like, okay. So I did. And I'm so grateful that I did, because it really took us down just a phenomenal path. And I couldn't be more grateful for Tuffy saying, "Hey, if you like what I'm doing, you should really meet my friend Sterling," because he could have just said, "You know what, this is my relationship. I'm not going to introduce you to somebody else." But he didn't do that. And so by doing that and introducing me to Sterling, he then, not only did I create just a fantastic friendship with both of them, but Sterling really became a huge creative partner of mine while I was at Smithfield. And I don't think that he gets as much credit publicly for a lot of the work that he really did in terms of helping develop these programs that we launched. And I mean, he was already doing the guinea pig and King of the Smoker himself, but he really helped inspire and helped me create the whole Smoking with Smithfield grant program. I mean, a lot of it was his idea, and I just helped be able to bring it to life and utilize the platforms at Smithfield and the funding to make it work, right? And I'm so proud of that. That's probably, to this day, one of the things within the barbecue space that I'm the most proud of what we accomplished, and just the amount of funding that we brought to contests and to pitmasters. Because without it, a lot of the contests that received those funds would not have survived even as long as they did. So anyway, I rambled with your question, but I'm so grateful for the time that I had at Smithfield. And I think that, those are some of my proudest accomplishments.
So I was just racing back through some emails here, and I believe we started communicating all the way. So it's going to be like 10 years. In
Yeah.
November, it was like November of 2016 that we originally started communicating, and there was kind of a long-standing sponsorship with the show with Smithfield
Yep.
and Barbecue Central, so that was great as well. What's the biggest misconception about Smithfield in general?
Oh gosh. I think it probably has changed over time. When I was still there, kind of earlier in those days, I would say the biggest misconception at that time was that, being owned by an ownership group that was the WH group at the time, people assumed, oh, the pork must be, coming from China or something to that effect. And that couldn't have been further from the truth. So I think that that was a huge misconception, that it wasn't, from the USA, blah, blah, blah. No, I went to many of the farms. I saw where the hogs were raised. I went to the processing plants. They were all in the US, right? So that was a huge misconception, I would say, at that time. And also, if you put your logical thinking hat on, it would cost way more money to put hogs on a ship and send them over to China to be processed and then sent back. But we heard all kinds of those things. I'm like, are you people ridiculous or what? But that was a huge misconception at that time. I don't know what I would say at this point. They're just not really involved in the sport of barbecue anymore. I still actually deal with them because now in my current role, we sell a lot of Smithfield pork actually, and they produce some of my private brand bacon and hot dogs actually. So I still deal with them in different ways, but they're still a great company, and honestly, so are some of the other companies that are out there. I think Prairie Fresh, did a great job of picking things up from where Smithfield kind of left things off. I've been working on milk contracts lately, so that's why Prairie Farms comes to mind, because they're a huge milk company. But anyway, so I think, there's space for everybody in the barbecue area, but again, I think Smithfield just did so many wonderful things at that time, and I'm really proud of helping get all of that started. So
do you transition from Smithfield to CEO at Kansas City Barbecue Society, or was there something in between that? And like, how does that happen?
Yeah. Well, so Smithfield wanted us all in Kansas City basically to move to Virginia.
You didn't want to go back east again?
No, I did not, especially not to Virginia, because, it's interesting. It is not the same. The cost of living is different. The school systems are not nearly as good as they are here from a public school standpoint. And so we would have had to go to private school and all of that. And, my husband has a great job here. He works for the Hunt family who owns the Chiefs.
Wow.
So it's like, it didn't add up. So, I'm like, no, we're not going to move. And so by doing so, anybody who didn't move basically didn't have a spot any longer. And they offered me a promotion, and I was like, nope, we still don't want to move. So anyway, at that time, I got a call, I think maybe a week after I was no longer at Smithfield. I got a call already from KCBS saying, hey, we are looking for a new CEO, and we would like to consider, you, would you consider applying, basically? And so we started having conversations, and one thing led to the next pretty darn quickly. And I think I was only on vacation, if you will, for a couple of weeks before I started over at KCBS. So, I think that everything I did at Smithfield just prepared me for KCBS. And I think that it put me in touch with the right people who knew what I could do and knew what I was capable of and knew what they needed at the time. And I don't even think I realized how much they needed me until I got there.
So it was Heath Hall. Heath Hall was he a CEO at that point, or was he a president, or was he the first CEO of KCBS then?
He was. He was the first actual CEO. Yes.
That doesn't work out. I think they should can him and then install you pretty quick thereafter. So you probably have to contend with some cleanup there. So, you saw KCBS from a sponsorship side, if you will, from Smithfield. Look, I'm not telling you anything you probably either didn't know or collect on your own or people didn't tell you, but, widely seen as kind of a good old boy network or a good old boy club. So what's the interest from your side to be involved in that from that level?
I was intrigued for a few reasons. One, I had not dipped my toe in the nonprofit water, I guess, yet. So I was kind of interested to see what that would look like. I also could tell that they needed help, I guess, particularly in terms of making the organization more professional and putting more programs in place, and also really trying to bring on more sponsors and things like that, because I also had seen some of the things that had happened before, right? And so they were trying to recover from some things there. So it gave me the opportunity to try new things myself, but also to use my skills in a different way to help the organization grow. So it was a risk, and I had another option that would have taken me down a very different path. I had an offer to go and be a strategy director actually for H&R Block. And I turned it down to go to KCBS. And I'll just tell you a funny story. So I had been interviewing with H&R Block, and I'd literally met with their CEO in Kansas City. They have a beautiful building downtown. It's this beautiful glass building. So I was up in his office, and then literally the next day I'm going to interview with Candy Weaver in her hers was nice, so don't get me wrong, but I'm with her in her Winnebago van in the Home Depot parking lot that's closest to my house. And so I'm thinking, wow, these two interviews could not have been more different. But I still think of that interview every time I go to the Home Depot by my house, because I'm like, I interviewed for a CEO job in this parking lot in Winnebago, and I got it. And it just seems so ironic. But knowing what I know now about the world of barbecue, that just seems very appropriate.
What was your vision? So you get hired. So what's your vision for KCBS during your time?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say my vision was to help put more programs in place, to help really for all the different audiences, right? So put more programming in place for the judges, try to get more sponsors for programs, that would help ultimately with more contests and help the actual contest organizers themselves. I also wanted to really help work on the World Invitational, which I think we did, and certainly make things better as well for the cooks. So that was, ultimately my vision was to try to create something for each of the different key audiences, and also, do something to help recognize the contest reps too. Because let me tell you, those people work very hard, and they get paid such a small amount for the work that they do. So, think about it. During that time, worked very closely with the board to create the J Cup judging program. And that was a tremendous amount of work, and it was very rewarding. But it was a lot of work, a lot of volunteer hours that went into that. I had a chance to really help work on the World Invitational. We had some very successful years with that, sold out. Gosh, how many years did I do that? I think at least 3 years I was working on that. And then, one of the things, again, crazy enough, one of the things that I'm the most proud of is trying to put together all of the different protocols for how we could successfully still hold contests during COVID. And again, working very closely with the board at that time to be able to do that, because we knew that it was within the organization's best interest to still have contests, just in order to keep funds going, right? And for the contests themselves, the communities depend on those contests. So to actually then be able to work through all of that and navigate how to do it, that to me, that was such a huge accomplishment. Now, not every contest was able to proceed. And let me tell you, we worked till the 11th hour to try to make the American Royal go that year. And to have to actually cancel that one year was just devastating to me. But we tried really damn hard. But ultimately, it was just too big. We couldn't have that many judges in one space safely. But anyway, so, I would say that ultimately that was my vision for KCBS, was to create and grow the programs, whether it was for all of the different audiences. And then when I got there, on top of all of that, it was more about trying to get the business itself into a more solid foundation, because I didn't really realize until I got there what a mess it was.
Yeah.
I say that with love, but it was a mess. So, we got the building sold. Again, that was something else that we didn't really talk about a whole lot at the time, but they never should have bought that building. So I'm proud that I was able to help get that done, because it's something that needed to be done. So, and that was not easy.
Well, KCBS known for having a very involved and large board, so much so that typically not a lot gets done, and they want to micromanage the leader to death. And to me, it's been a bad setup for a long time as far as how many board members they have. Your thoughts on the board and how they either supported you or stymied your progress as CEO?
Yeah, I think, ultimately it's a delicate question. I would say that for the most part, I did feel pretty supported. There certainly were times when I probably could have run further. But I think for the most part, when it came to needing support, they were there. I think I probably had more runway than I have seen both before and after me. And I think a lot of that probably came just from my experience that I brought.
Yeah.
And also just the dedication and drive to make some of those things happen. Right. So I would say it wasn't the perfect balance, but it sure was. It was a decent balance. The other thing I would say is the organization is so lean that the board itself, the people who serve on the board, they do a tremendous amount of service. They really genuinely do. And for the most part, I would say they really do it from seeking to make the organization a better place. And so that's one of the things that I would say, I don't think that the average member realizes just how much service the board really puts in. And it's easy to say, oh, the board this, the board that. Well, when you're on calls with board members numerous hours of a week and numerous hours out of the month, and you see the dedication that they have, I would argue anyone who would say the board this, the board that, and say, okay, well then you serve, because you don't realize how much time they put in until you're doing it. So that's just my 2 cents. I think that, I don't think they get enough credit for what they do, quite frankly, and they don't get paid for it. So
what's your most notable achievement during your time
at KCBS?
Yep.
Oh, gosh. Well, I don't know that I would. It's hard to say one single thing. Like I said, I'm really proud of helping get the J Cup off the ground from a judging program, because I think that was so needed. I do believe that while I was there, I think that the World Invitational was at a very strong point. So I was proud of that. I also was proud. I was proud to get the National Turkey Foundation or Federation to come back, because they were about to exit as a sponsor. And again, knowing what I know as a marketer, I was able to basically say, hey, give me a shot. let me try to prove this to you to see what we can do. And they did, and they came on and they stayed on the whole time I was there.
Mm-hmm.
And our team, our staff busted their butts to make things like that happen, but we brought on partners that we hadn't had before, like the US Meat Export Federation. We brought on the soy people, and granted they didn't really start doing anything until after I left, but some of those types of things, we would grind it out to bring that stuff on, and ultimately to repair some of the relationships that were tarnished in the past before I got there. I'm pretty darn proud of that. And just the staff, I was so proud of the staff. Again, such a small group. But those ladies, they worked their tails off to make it all happen, and I'm so grateful for them. So
what happened?
Anyway.
Where does it go wrong?
Well, I wouldn't say that it went wrong necessarily. It's interesting. Again, barbecue has just been like kind of a central theme in a lot of the things that have happened in my career. So one of my good friends from Smithfield, she became the vice president of meat and seafood at Associated Wholesale Grocers, which is where I work now. And she asked me if I would come and talk about barbecue trends at their innovation showcase. And at that time, Sterling Ball was now working on behalf of Tyson Foods as one of their spokespeople. And so she asked if I would come and do barbecue trends with him on stage. And so I did. And the CEO of Associated Wholesale Grocers talked to her and said, "Hi, I met Emily several years ago. She's the one who got away. I never had a chance to bring her on board." And my friend Heather said, "I bet if you talk to her now, she might not get away this time." So,
because you were receptive, or you were looking for like exit stage right, or what?
Well, because I was receptive at that point. I think I had been at KCBS for about 3.5 years at that point, I think, and I just
did you have an expiring deal with them?
No. In fact, the board has they had re-upped my deal. But I just, at that point, I was ready to go back to the CPG or retail world. And so I wanted to see, and likewise, to try to find something that's in Kansas City. That was like an amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
So anyway, they asked me to come in and meet with all of their executives, and they didn't really have a job specifically at the time. I wasn't interviewing for a certain role. They kind of made a role for me. So I did something I'd never done before. They had me lead what's called space planning. So like the planograms. So imagine, like when you go to a grocery store and everything has its place on the shelf. I led that team for a year. And then the gentleman who had been leading the private label team retired. So I think they knew that was going to happen. But, and then I took over that. So, cause I had worked, in private label basically for 7 or 8 years in my career at Damon. So that's what I've been doing ever since. And ironically, we sell, probably $3 to $4 million worth of private label barbecue sauce and probably $10 million of, private label charcoal and pellets every year in my Best Choice brand. So I'm still connected, right? It's just selling it in a different brand. So and Royal Oak actually is the one who makes our charcoal.
They make a lot of charcoal.
But there you go.
They make a lot of charcoal. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's fun. Do
you think if the pandemic wouldn't have happened, things would have been different at all?
I do. I really do. I think that, we were on a path when I first got there. I think that, the aspirations to really go down a path of bringing on more sponsors and programs to be able to help drive more engagement, we were definitely on a path. And then because of all of our international teams and contests, they were actually the ones who kind of sparked what was happening first, right? Because I got calls from our contest reps from Italy basically saying, "We're shutting down here. We're not able to go out anywhere. And I was like, what are you talking about? And so sure enough, within, 2 or 3 weeks, we're doing the same things here.
Yeah.
And so that definitely put a huge change immediately. And it was such a hard thing for a lot of, for most of this contest to happen. It's communities that are rallying together to bring these things to life, right? And for some of the smaller communities, they just couldn't make it work anymore. And so as contests would go away, then you don't have as many things for either the teams to participate in or the judges to participate in, right? And it's equally as important to have things for the judges to participate in too, from a membership standpoint. So, it really had a huge impact. So, but then we had other fun things that were happening, right? So I got a call from this group called OHM Concessions, and I asking me what I could help them with for the new Kansas City airport that was coming. And I said to them, I was like, as much as I would love to help you, I can't do all of that and keep my nonprofit organization going the same, to the same degree. But what I can do is I can kind of help give you ideas. And so came up with the idea of working with a contest organizer. So here locally, we've got Amy Young, and she's just wonderful. So she helped kind of lead the actual contest organization, and we made it be a KCBS sanctioned event every year. They ended up winning the contract for the bid for the Kansas City airport. So we came up with that idea of that the winner every year would be featured in the restaurant in the new Kansas City airport. And that's been going on now. I think Meet Rushmore is on there now. And I think they're the third or fourth, team to be featured. So again, just really cool stuff. I think we could have done a whole lot more of those types of things if COVID hadn't gotten in the way. But again, that's one of those things that I'm so proud of, and I travel a lot for my job now. So every time I'm in the airport, I love looking at that. And you were talking about Billy Gillespie. He's featured in some of the B-roll footage in that restaurant. And I look up there every time I'm in the airport, and I'm like, oh, they're my friends. I just love it. So anyway, I take a lot of pride in everything I do, but I will say that everything I've done in the barbecue space, whether it's the contests, all the stuff I did at Smithfield, coming on the show with you and announcing the Smoking with Smithfield lineup every year.
Oh yeah, great.
That was so. I was telling my dad at dinner tonight, actually, because I was explaining what I was coming up here to do tonight on the podcast, and it just was fun reminiscing about all of that. So I enjoyed all of those things for sure.
Well, I'm glad you are mega successful at your current position. And look, it's been an absolute delight from the moment we made first connections to all the time that we did business together, but really establishing kind of this online relationship. And as you said, doing exclusive announcements and announcing new programs and new promotions. And it was always great fun to have you come on, or one of your colleagues come on and doing segments on the show, and then still being able to kind of keep in touch now and again has been really a great part of my whole show life here. So I just want to say thank you first and foremost for everything you've done for me in the show, and again, congratulations for getting into the 2025 Barbecue Central Show's Guest Hall of Fame, but most importantly, spending all this time tonight starting all the way back from 1980 and bringing us to where we are here, September of 2025.
Well, thank you, Greg. I think, again, I just echo all of the same sentiments that you said. I have really enjoyed all of our times together, and I certainly still hope that we'll have a lot of other ways of continuing to engage, because you just never know. Maybe we'll be talking about Best Choice something, or maybe we'll be talking about something else down the road. You never know. But I purposely wore my pork princess because it's my favorite. So
very good. Very good.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming on tonight, and we will talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks, Greg.
You got it. Thank you.
Take care.
Emily Detwiler right there. 2025 Barbecue Central Show's Guest Hall of Famer, and 3 minutes shy of being right on top of the hour, 3 minutes over being right on top of the hour. I said September, I meant October. 2025. By the way, Johnny Maggs has confirmed that it's Bill Gillespie's 13th Jack Daniels appearance. However, not technically consecutive because COVID. We're not going to hold that against him necessarily, so we will say 13th time in a row for Bill Gillespie. So once again, in almost successive weeks, I am 100% wrong. Look, I mean, what have we learned? Like, don't listen to me. What do I know? I can be very convincing because I talk with authority. I speak with confidence and what I feel is correctness. But in the end, I'm mostly usually wrong, as I am in this instance with Bill Gillespie and how many times when I was so sure that really it was just IQ and Myron Mixon that had been down to the Jack 10 years in a row, and probably nobody else was close to that. I was wrong, just totally wrong. Don't hold it against me. I was going to tell you a story tonight when I realized this was a whole guest Hall of Famer show. I knew I wasn't going to be able to do any run-ups. I almost did something I haven't ever done 2 nights ago. And I'm going to tease it right there. So let's wrap it up all the way back in the first hour. It was a whole hour with Andy Husbands, 2025 Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer. And then backing Andy up, Emily Detwiler, the pork princess, as she noted, giving us her origin story. She also 2025 Barbecue Central Show's guest Hall of Famer. Both standalone, great interviews. The fact that we were able to back them up, even more special for this show. Next week, third Tuesday of the month. Is that right? Negative. Next week. Boy, I got to get back in touch with Wes now that I'm thinking about this. So next week, David Gafford from Barbecue Lab. Of course, Robert Moss. Then in the second hour, Melissa Cookston for her origin story. And then I believe we're finishing it up with Wes Wright the following week after that. Now I got to go back through my emails and make sure that I didn't tell Wes the wrong things here. But that's what it feels correct to me. Next week, normal first hour with an origin story of Melissa Cookston, second hour, and then Wes Wright's origin story the first hour the week after that. And then we're going to be done. We'll have all 5 origin stories done before October is closed out. I don't know if we've ever done it this quick, but this was great. So, how do I always leave you? September 11th, 2001. I will never forget. And until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, this is your program host and proud U.S. American Greg Rempe saying, Shalom!
Hi, this is Austin Parsons, Pitmaster with Smoky Mountain Q in Nashville, Tennessee, and you are listening to the Barbecue Central Show.